Welcome to another episode of the Popco Project. And today is a little bit of a different style guest, which is awesome because this year I said to myself, I wanted to kind of get out of my comfort zone and interview people that aren't musicians. Um, Although you kind of do fit into that category, I guess you could say, and we might get into that. But today we have Guilford Adams on the podcast, and he is the director of a new documentary called American Clown. And American Clown features many famous actors who everyone's familiar with, including John C. Riley, Step Brothers, Walk Hard, Talladega Nights. My favorite appearance of him is Dr. Steve Brule from Tim and Eric Awesome Show. He's also got David Arquette, who was in a lot of the Screams, and then also Steve-O from Jackass. Everyone knows Steve-O from Jackass, but Guilford himself is also a famous clown. He's appeared in
Yeah,
Lucifer. He's appeared on The Late Show with James Corden, Jimmy Kimmel Live. So, Guilford, I'm very excited to have you on today. So, thanks so much for joining me.
yeah. Apparently, they'll let any clown on this show, And then, yeah, no, I'm excited to be here, man. This is great, and yeah, I've been lucky to have carve out a middle class actor career here in Los Angeles, but my side hustle has been, and sometimes it's my permanent hustle or my full time hustle is being a clown. So I have done everything from kids' parties to corporate events to 30-year-old birthdays at some bar in Silver Lake. It's just kind of what I do.
Well, it's funny. Like, I honestly haven't really even thought about clowns in any aspect
Yeah.
anytime recently. And then, I saw the trailer for this documentary and I was like, wow, there's like a really deep history that, as you get older, I think you might kind of forget. At least, I mean, maybe today's generations kind of doesn't know about those things. So it's kind of great that you've done this, but it really got me thinking of, growing up and clowns were a part of every birthday party. And there's some, the famous ones. There's Bozo and there's, you name it. I mean, even Ronald McDonald could be considered a clown, I guess you could say.
Well, he's very much fun. Yeah.
But yeah, so I haven't thought about clowns in a long time. But like I said, the trailer really kind of captured that essence, that history of clown culture. And as far as you kind of talked about your story so far, but who is Guilford Adams in your own words?
Well, I mean, I don't know. In my own words, Guilford Adams, I mean, I've always been kind of a clown. I've always gravitated towards being a physical performer. Even before I got into acting, I was a collegiate diver, and I kind of fell into acting right as like the diving thing it lost its luster a little bit for me, and the competing on the college level and stuff. It just didn't seem kind of really my bag. And that's when I got into kind of acting, but I got in a physical way because I had come as an athlete and as a tumbler and that sort of stuff. I from diving on the platforms and springboard. And then and so because of that physical thing into acting and wanting to do that, the clowns just they came alive. Shakespeare was very accessible to me, and doing the servants and all that sort of stuff, and the language, and it just so I've always kind of been in love with these I don't know, like older type, the historic type of professions. I've just liked it, and so when I moved out to here as an actor in LA, I needed to have uh, my stuff. I needed to have my weeks basically free for auditions and stuff. That was back when you needed to go to an audition. Everything now is self tapes, and so I started working as a clown on the weekends and for other people. And then I was like, well, why am I doing that? I should do it myself. And I really started cutting my teeth on that sort of profession, and then that led to other things because of the company that I had and all that sort of stuff. And really, the web. I mean, the web changed everything. This is like before, for all your young listeners out there, before apps on phones, we had the internet, And the internet at the time, the World Wide Web, just changed everything. So, I went from having a company called A Clowns for Hire, because I wanted to be in a telephone book with the
Oh,
A's,
smart.
to getting to Los Angeles Clown because I wanted to be Googleable. I wanted somebody to be able to Google my name. And this is before even Google was a thing. I think there was something before that. So things have, things have changed, and things continue to change. But the one thing that hasn't changed is that clowns make people laugh, a lot of the time. And so I wanted to explore that a little more.
Yeah. So, as far as what was your path into filmmaking? Obviously you've been out in LA and you've kind of how long
You
have
know,
you been there
I
for?
Right. I've been out in LA for 25 years. No, been out for 25 years. I started as in I found the bug in Tennessee when I was an athlete there. I quit diving, and then I transferred to University of Texas because that's where I'm from. I'm from Houston. And it was silly to pay out of state tuition if I wasn't diving anymore. I wasn't on the team, and I kind of got the acting bug in Tennessee. Came to Texas, and I was lucky enough to get in the BFA program, and that just kind of started it, and then I did some feature films in Austin like in 95 and 98, 99, and I did a movie called Boys Don't Cry. At the time it was called Take It Like a Man, where I played Hilary Swank's dad and a couple flashback scenes. And then in this I was Taft Hartley, which is a big thing as an actor. Like I could get in the union. I'd done one union job. So, at 2000, right after Y2K didn't wipe us out, I was like, I'll go to LA and see how we do. I can get my union card and all that sort of stuff. And that's kind of when I moved in. And then, so this stuff had been percolating a little bit. But when I got out here, I had some skills as a clown. I could do animal balloons and juggling and that sort of stuff. And so I really started kind of delving more into it. Um, Out of college, I had auditioned for clown school, which is the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus had a clown school that was pretty famous. They had for years. And in 97, I auditioned, but I didn't fill out the paperwork because I just felt like they would see how awesome I was. And they just give me apart. So I didn't follow through really. And so I didn't get in that year. But then that year was the last year they did it. Unbeknownst to all of us at the time, it was like, okay, now clown school no longer exists. So I was like, so I really kind of learned the trade kind of working on my own and doing kids parties, a big portion of it. And then eventually meeting back up with everybody that did get into that clown school year. And I became pretty embedded with all those guys later on.
So clown school is a real thing.
Clown school was a real thing. I think they say it as a joke, kind of like, here you go to clown school, you go to school. But there was a Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus clown school. There's a Del Arte that's kind of here in Northern California where they do kind of mask work and that sort of stuff. And then there's Lecoq, which is like a school in France. And that's, I think that's what they say that Zach Galifianakis' character in Baskets went to, like this French, sort of like wellness school. But there isn't, something happened in the 80s, in the 90s really, where it became very having some clowning aspect to your collegiate program was preferred, and so you take a semester in clowning, or you'd have clowning classes, and people like Bill Irwin and Bob Berkey would go to schools and colleges to try to like teach the students clowning. But so it kind of worked its way out into regional programs. But as far as the clown school, that ended in 97, and there hasn't really been anything to replace it since.
Was there something about clowns that kind of drew you to it?
I've always enjoyed this sort of, I think we are relatively simple creatures,
Yeah.
people, and so I've always enjoyed, like I'll give you a perfect, so in Commedia, which is kind of based in clowning, you would have a servant named Arlecchino. Now, Arlecchino would be given a letter. He'd be needed to take it to his Pantalone, which is kind of his boss or the guy that he had ownership over him. And so he would take a letter, and then he'd need to go. It was a simple task, right? Take this letter, go bring it to your boss. Like, okay, this is like done 400 years ago, 300 years. So he'd take the letter, and then on the way to his boss, he'd be like, "God, I'm starving," like I am right now. I can hear my stomach growling. I'm starving, and so he would take it, and then he would eat, like I didn't have anything to eat and whatever. And so he'd eat the letter because he's just that hungry. And then when he gets to his boss, the boss is like, well, where's the letter? He's like, he can't tell me he ate it because he get in trouble. He's like, well, he had to be extemporaneous. Like, okay, well, I'll tell you what's on it. Here, basically, this was the letter. And to me, I think that's every situational comedy that there is right now. Like it's like that's like Seinfeld has that sort of same premise. Curb Your Own Enthusiasm. That's very similar. Not that they're eating letters, but there's a simple premise. And at the end of the episode, you don't largely grow from the experience. You're the exact same as you were when you started the episode. You're just a little less dumb about that one thing. And then to me, that's just like how we are as people. I love that. I think there's not these big epiphanies all the time. We just kind of like we know not to eat dumpster trash because that one time I did, that's what happened. And
Right.
I guess I like that. I think there's something very human in that sort of recognition. And to me, that's a lot of what being a clown is. It's very based in situational comedy. Um, kids are natural clowns, right? There's just a natural quality to them that you'll see a very small kid trying to grab balls and then he's putting them in, or he's trying to grab a couple and then he drops one and you see him like, I just dropped the ball and he goes back down to grab it. He drops another and he's like, I just dropped another ball, and it's so fun to watch. We're just
Yeah.
watching like, oh my God, they just, because at our worst, that's what we're like. I mean, we do that taking groceries in from the car, it's just like, this is like a comedy bit.
Yeah.
And I just think there's something that resonates with all of us in that. And I really like delving into that.
Reminds me of like times when you're like rushing out the door to go to work and your belt loop gets stuck on the door handle,
Oh, dude. Yeah.
and then you
Yeah.
stub your toe, and it just kind of like
Yeah, it's just like Jesus. And then,
domino effect.
and you have those days you're like, oh, this is the other day I had a job or doing a little side hustle and then had my coffee in the thing and I'm getting done. It's like 6 o'clock in the morning, grab a coffee and it just spills on the ground. I'm like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I'm like, I hope this is not how the day goes. Like, I really hope this is not a precursor for
Right.
just the worst day ever. But you just gotta, okay, you know what? I'm not even gonna think about it. Just pick the cup off the thing. That sucks.
Yeah.
So I think there's a part of us, and then when we see that happen to other people, it feels like we feel a little less stupid. We're like, oh
Hmm.
God, that guy is stupid.
Yeah.
So I think there's a salve in laughter in realizing that we make mistakes, and I think to be the giver of that is just really exciting.
Yeah. It's fun.
Yeah, that's fun.
So did directing kind of was that like a natural evolution to your time in entertainment?
I think there's been I was in Boy Scouts and I was in the Eagle Scout and stuff, and so I think there's always a part of me that is happy to lead. I don't necessarily always want to. Sometimes I feel a little bit forced to, and even with this process, I mean, I was the one interested in the story. Out of all the producers and everybody else in the story, I'm the only one that kind of knows what to ask, what to tell. So it felt like it was a natural evolution to kind of to get what I needed, but it was never something. And to this day, if somebody saw this and said, "Hey, I love that documentary. I could take it to the next level and get it in theaters worldwide, but make me the director," like, awesome. You got it. You're the director now. It was only because I was doing it in lieu of somebody else better than I could do it. And I think that's a lot of what leadership is. It's like it's not something you want to do. You're just kind of like, there's no one else that's going to do this right now. So I
Right.
guess I have to do this.
Yeah, and who better though?
Yeah, I mean no one else knows how to do this.
So let's talk about American Clown. What is the film about, and where did the idea come from?
So I had a producer talk to me maybe the early 2015, 14. It was like, "Hey, Gil, I think you have a fun life." And this is like pre-kids that I had kids. I was like, we should do a documentary. And I was like, and at the time I had been employed by the owners and operators of Southern California as an assistant to Ronald McDonald. So I worked very closely with Ronald McDonald. And it was around that time I was like, "Ah, I don't want to mess anything up there. And I've got, potentially we want to start a family and all that." But then in 2017, there was a big sort of a bunch of events that were happening. I don't know about Scranton, but out here in California, there was like a bunch of like these scary clown sightings. The program I was a part of with the Ronald program, they were having Ronald lay low because they were worried about all these sightings, and it was coming out, and it just seemed like this big like to do. And I was like, what's going on? What's going on here? And at that time, Ringling Brothers closed their doors. And this is probably had been a long time in the making, but the timing was suspicious. And then in the Big Apple Circus, which is a circus on the East Coast, they were closing their doors. And I saw all this just real negative sort of stuff about clowning and like clowns, and they're all, and I thought like, well, this is a very clever guerrilla campaign for it, which was also coming out, this sort of rehashing of it, or the reboot. And but then it felt like, well, I reached back out to this producer friend of mine. I was like, maybe we should film this because my program is ending, and I saw everyone else's program that worked with Ronald was ending around the country, and we're like, oh, that's weird. Sucks to be you. And all of a sudden, we got our walking papers. We're like, what? That's it. And I thought, well, we should be filming this. I don't know legally how much we can use of it. And, and there's a real brotherhood with all the Toms and the people that work with Ronald McDonald, especially back then, because it was still there. Hey, don't say anything. And understandable. And, we're all there to support Ronald ultimately. And, and so these things started happening. So we started kind of like just interviewing people and what's going on. And then the pandemic hit, and then all of a sudden it was like, let's keep interviewing, because now everyone's like trying to figure out what we're going to do, and how to come out of it. And the horror clown never really kind of disappeared. And it's just like, it's kind of okay, this is what we're living with. And I think a lot of it is a little bit similar to like stand-up comics and political correctness and all that sort of like, whoa, it's like these are just natural obstacles that life puts in your way, that these are things that we have to navigate. But doing this and realizing like, okay, now the horror clowns are here and they're here to stay, and we got to learn to be friends, sort of thing. It really dawned on me like, well, but for the average kid now, they don't really see, that's all they see,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's like you said, like I haven't really thought about clowns for, because they're not they're not around. I mean, any marketing McDonald's does now is going to be not with Ronald. They don't really have them much anymore, maybe for a shareholder meeting or something. But they're going to have, whatever the new toys are for the Pixar movie, like the,
Right.
the McDonald land, that stuff that existed for a while, it has now moved to something else. The circus is back, but they're back without clowns. So you're not really seeing it like you used to see it. And I thought, well, I think we need to kind of put a pin in this and say, hey, why are we here now? What has happened? What has changed? At the very least, talk to other clowns and get their input and find out how they're feeling, how they're faring, and what their thoughts are on the future of where this is going. And so that's kind of what the doc has set out to do.
I think that's where we went wrong when we got rid of like the OGs.
Yeah, maybe so. If you, it's so there is something to, and I've spoken about this once before. Clowning is really a reflection of our time. So back in the 30s, you had during the Great Depression, you had a very famous clown who was a trapeze artist that was injured. His name was Emmett Kelly. And Emmett Kelly became this sort of tramp clown that a lot of people know. He's got like a beard and stuff, and his jacket's got like a little clothesline pin on his for his tie clip, and his pants are too big and all this sort of stuff. And it's like that people probably related to this clown because like, well, guy looks like my uncle, a little bit, a little more clowny, but basically him.
Yeah.
And then you get into the 30s and the 40s, and this major carnival show circus is moving around, and it got more commercial and a little more successful. And then you see clowns that have kind of more august, which is a lot of ringling clowns, but kind of big eyes, but some sort of skin tones here and a big mouth, whatever. Lou Jacobs and these sort of, and it's like clowning is becoming a little bit more popular culture. And then corporations start really latching onto it. You see, back in the day, Burger King had a clown. Ronald gets their clown. Bozo, the clown. The kids love clowns. He's doing this sort of circuit around. There's lots of different Bozos and lots of different markets. All of these almost need their own documentary. I mean, Ronald needs his own documentary. Bozo needs his own documentary. Like, there's so much rich tradition going on, and they just kind of spin off. But we're like a tapas. We're just trying to deal with all of it as it's kind of going through. Um, so, but that's kind of the sort of the corporation embracing all of these clowns. Well, then you get into like the beginning of the 21st century, and everyone's distrustful of these corporations. Super Size Me came out. It's like this clown is hawking burgers, and so we're kind of like in this sort of, and it has already kind of set the course a little bit. You have two major movies in that time that are very kind of like clowns are scary. And if you remember, Poltergeist has a
Hmm.
little clown doll in it. It's like and that thing comes alive. And so this new generation is not only taught to like what they've been, the corporate greed, and then there's all these scary clowns like, oh, well, that's a double, that looks bad, all the clowning. But we've moved into kind of this sort of 21st century where clowns, not only are they like they're going to murder you, like they're supernatural, horrific, like
Yeah.
just decimating. So I'm not saying, but I'm saying, is that a sign of our times? If we're using all of these sort of milestones as clowns, and now that we've got this sort of surreal, sort of like Nightmare on Elm Street type clowny type, that sucks, I don't know what that means, but it does mean that there's like a certain level of panic from the American public that they don't know who to believe, like what's good, what's not good, there's just a real sort of like don't believe your lying eyes sort of attitude. And I think that speaks volumes for kind of where we are. So it's not surprising that we're here, but I do want to remind people that, like, you know when you ramp back down, clans still provide a very worthwhile service for a lot of kids, and they do some really magical work. And I'm a little bit loath to kill the messenger there,
Yeah.
because I think we lose something when we lose that.
Yeah. I haven't even thought about, I have two young children, and the idea of a clown at a birthday party never even crossed my mind.
Oh, really?
That's how far, yeah, far removed I am from clowns. And like, I mean, I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and
Yeah.
yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, it's I mean, I do parties all the time. There's in LA, I'm lucky that a lot of it is sort of like European, like white. But I mean, in LA, like I will do a mosque and like a temple in the same day, and every culture understands what the clown is there to do.
Yeah.
There's very little confusion as far as who you are and what you provide. So it's very unique for me being out here, because sure, I will see some sort of like less parties in Calabasas, but I'll have just as many parties, elsewhere, for depending on the area of California, that I'm kind of servicing at the time. So it's definitely, the horror clowns are here to stay. They're not going anywhere. I've made friends with it. I just don't want it to be the only thing. I will have kids ask me all the time, oh, are an all clowns scary? It's like, no, 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 no. Well, yo, I know you're talking about my cousin Pennywise. Yeah, he's gone to Hollywood. Drives a
Yeah.
Tesla. So, and that's just my way of, so because they see us all as one community, so I'll embrace that. But there's other people that, other clowns do different things. We just do different things.
Yeah. You talk a lot about these horror clowns, and David Howard Thornton, which is, he's the Terrifier.
Yeah.
He appears in this documentary, correct?
Yeah, he does. He
Yeah.
does.
What made him the right fit for to have him included in this when we're talking about, the history and the evolution of the clown, and how maybe the horror clown has taken over, so to speak.
Well, I mean, I don't know if Tim Curry would have sat with us,
Yeah.
although I know I have been in a doc with him before, his doc about Pennywise. And he seems like a wonderful guy. He might have. I never asked him. But I like David because he's a recognizable name. A producer actually, before I even knew what the Terrifier was like, I think we should get him. And I was like, okay, I do think we don't need to, like, we can't just pretend the elephant in the room's not there. We need to talk to a horror clown. And I was so intrigued by his interview because it was like, oh, he's a clown. It's like he loves everything. He has the same references that I do. Loves a lot of the stuff, and the reason why that movie's successful is because he's enjoying what he's doing. And kind of the mayhem he's creating, and he's kind of silly and funny, and people are like, oh my God, I'm laughing at him, and he's killing that person.
Yeah.
So he's utilizing the same skills, except he's putting a very macabre twist on it. And he'll readily admit that a lot of my buddies back at home are like, dude, you're giving us a bad name, and he says that in the doc. But I think it really speaks to volumes of our like our limited ability to differentiate or to think for ourselves or something, because there's plenty of people. There's a murdering nun out there, but not everyone assumes all nuns murder, like,
Right.
so I'm not sure where the disconnect is, other than it's a little fashionable to like to be negative about stuff, and it creates community and to bond over that, and I don't think we have a very good clowns in general have a very good PR campaign. Sharks have a better PR department than we do. They have a whole week on
Yeah.
TV, and we have very little speaking for us. So I thought, like, well, I will put a foot forward and speak on behalf of me as a clown, and hopefully others will echo what I'm saying. And that was kind of the goal.
Do you think that happens? Do you think this like kind of reintroduces the history and kind of uh, catapults it to like a new thing or a new level?
Well, I think there's a resurgence of it to begin with, and that was part of why we wanted to release it when we did. Is I think there's always backlash, right? We see that a lot right now in
Yeah.
America. We see pendulum swing this way and swings back this way and swings back this way, and I think for a lot of people, you can hate on something long enough before people are like, like, wait, what? Why are we hating on that? Like, I'm sure people are going to start listening to Nickelback and be like, dude, they're great. Have you actually heard Nickelback?
Yeah.
And so I think of it, but for years it was just like, Nickelback. So I don't think people are really paying attention to what they're hating on, other than just like, well, it brings me closer to people to dislike something. So I think that there will be, or that there is kind of like, that it's time for it to swing back this direction. And I mean, my hope is that with the doc, I've talk to enough clowns and their feeling about it, that they'll see a little bit of the human behind the mask, as it were, and why people like this would do this, and kind of like, oh, I didn't notice that does a lot. I mean, if you look at a newscast, any newscast, it's going to show you just the worst of the worst. I mean, that's what we want to watch, right? We don't watch like sweet, nice. I mean, we say that we want to, but then we'll
Right.
turn the channel because we want to like clickbait something else and be like, that's horrible, and it's just, so what? So then just one day, all we have is horrible stuff because all you want to watch. Like, that sounds terrible, And so I think we need, even if it's not something that feels like it's not getting as many clicks as the horrible stuff, we still need to tell these stories, because otherwise we'll just be left with like, what's the point of even going on? Everything looks so terrible. So I'm trying to tell kind of a positive thing while recognizing the negative stuff that kind of comes along with it.
Yeah.
That, I think there is so much good. Puddle's Pity Party is doing a great job singing songs and kind of pushing this clown lore a little bit further. For viewers that don't know him, Puddle's Pity Party, please Google him. Medical clowning does so much for these young people that are like sick, and I think, is this going to destroy programs because we're too fixated on the horror clown? And even if you love horror clowns, if it's horror clowns 24/7, those will go away too, because people will be like, that's been done. We're tired of seeing it. So I think just to continue the horror clown thing, we gotta mix it up a little bit. We gotta have other clowns in there just to kind of like to make it feel fresh.
Yeah. No, I like I said, I love this because like I said, I haven't thought about clowns in forever, and it was nice to kind of reminisce about the growing up and things like that. You have John C. Riley as part of this too. Like, how did he get into the fold?
I did John's kids' parties way
Okay.
back when, 20 years ago. I mean, I've been a birthday party clown for 20 something years. So, a lot longer than I thought I would be, to be honest. But I like it. People are like, hey, you keep doing this. Like, yeah, I'm by myself. I make really good money doing it. And you're never catching somebody on a bad day.
Yeah.
their their kids' parties are usually in a good mood. They've got a beer in their hand. The kids are entertained. They're like, hey, congratulations, Dad, you made it another year. Like, dude, tell me about it, man. It's been a tough one. I just think that there's something very sweet about the dynamics of it. So as I get older, and I'm like, I just thought I wouldn't be doing it. It's like, well, what else do you want to do, man? Like it's like this is a good job. I don't have to think about it. I just go in there, have fun. It's like I'm the life of the party. I mean, it's funny. My life has changed a little bit because now I have kids and they're 8 years old. And so now what I used to do is go to I used to do birthday parties and then I would go out at night with my friends and whatever and then hopefully not go too hard and then wake up again and do birthday parties but I get paid to the birthday parties. Now I go to parties with my kids where I'm not the whatever and so I'm not getting paid to go to these parties. But then I get booked to go to a party at night, and it's like, and they're paying me $300 to be in clown face and whatever. And I'm there for an hour. And it's like, so the reverse is now happening to me. Now I'm getting paid to go to parties at night. I'm usually in and out. I'm not drinking, and it's like, but now I got to go to kids' parties for free. So
Yeah.
I've done the whole gamut.
Well, that was always a stigma too, right? Clown was out partying all night, wakes up, he still smells like beer,
Oh yeah.
does
I'm
parties.
sure it's happened. I'm sure it's happened with me. I mean, I could tell you stories that would make your listeners cringe. I've done 4,000 parties. Not all are winners,
4,000.
but I made them. I mean, I can tell you I have missed three in my life. Three parties in my life where like it was a horrible situation, or I got the date wrong, or oh wait, where are you? I can't get there in time. And out of 4,000, I mean, so the odds are pretty good I'll
Pretty
make the
good.
party.
Yeah,
But those haunt me. Those parties. I
sure.
that's exactly where it was what I was doing. So I've always made them. I've been very Steve-O's has a great sort of thing where he's talking about when he was right before Jackass and doing all that stuff and how he was very responsible and he made it. He's hungover and horrible and and I had those years. I definitely had those years, but I don't have those years anymore.
Yeah,
I've I've turned into a different being a dad has done a lot for that and
they'll
you
do
know
it.
yeah, I mean,
They'll do
you're
it.
like, oh, and having a different relationship to kids, and it's hard. You can't. It's really hard, as a performer you're going to infuse what your life is what your life is doing to how you relate to other people. It's just, you got more compassion. I mean, when I worked in the hospital, and I had kids, and then I saw kids that were sick, like, oh, you can't help but think, Jesus. I mean, excuse me, but if this was me, oh my God, I got nothing to worry about, dude. I mean, this
Yeah,
is like be so hard for a parent.
yeah.
I just can't even imagine.
Couldn't imagine.
And then you're like, dude, what else can I do? What can I do to what else can I do? How can I be of service? So I think that in a profession like the one that I've chosen for myself, as far as being a clown, it's a joy to be of service. I mean, I do it on my birthday. I do it for free, you know? I mean, I don't, but I would,
Right.
so it's like what other jobs do that?
Yeah, you said you're reliable. One person. There's no one to tell you you're doing. I
A bad
guess,
job or no, I'm
yeah, a
kidding,
bad job, or maybe the people that hire you. But I'm sure you're a great clown. But yeah, there's no one like there's no outside like issues.
It's nice not to. It's just you're on your own, and then at the end of the day, you go back home. It's like I love it. I love it. And then in the energy that I feel as an actor, and I am in a profession as well as an actor that's very difficult and it can be brutal and and there's a huge amount of rejection. So when I kind of feel like, it's just kind of peel myself off the floor, like, you know what, I'm gonna focus on this other thing for a little bit. I'll come back to this when I feel like a little bit more inflated. Right now, I'm just feeling a little bit low, and it can give the energy that you want to as a clown. I highly recommend. I mean, maybe this is the market we live in. Anybody, artist or not, have a side hustle. Just have a side hustle, because and maybe we all do now. Maybe we have four side hustles. All of us. That's the way Americans live now. But just for when something just really stinks, you're like, I cannot. You know what? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna focus on this right here
Yeah.
because it's just. I don't know. It fills you up a little bit.
Yeah.
It just makes you feel. "Yeah, why am I stressing about this thing? I'll get back to it. I need to get back to it. I'm gonna do this other thing. I love it. I love having that.
It's a nice little cleanser.
Yeah, it is for sure.
You mentioned Steve-O. How did he get involved?
So the year that I auditioned to get into clown school and I didn't follow through on my paperwork was the year 1997. That year, a bunch of the people that I would meet later in my life, maybe the mid 2005, 2006, all went to that clown school class. They all were in the class of 97. Steve was also a part of that class.
Hmm.
So I would have met him if I had gotten in that year. Or if I filled out my paperwork like I probably should have. And then so Matt, one of my friends that I've worked with in Troubadour Theater Company, Matt Walker, he is a friend of Steve-O and he had his number. And so when I mentioned to him, like, hey, could he reach out? He's like, sure, dude, no problem. And Steve-O, being the consummate professional he is, was just none too happy to sit down with me. Super sweet. Just I mean, he's just a real pro, man. I think and I told him I think Jackass is very much 2.0 clowning to me. What they do and the slapstick that you saw in the Three Stooges. I mean, those
Yeah.
guys do the same thing, but with paper cuts and with snorting wasabi, and
Yeah, you're
it's
right.
it's it's just another evolution of that. So in many ways, I see Jackass as part of just this. It is he needs to be part of this documentary because this is part of the evolution of clowning to me.
Yeah, that's a good point. I never thought about that either. But you just think of clowns like, red noses, rainbow hair, honking a horn or something like that. You don't think about how you said earlier at the top of the show, like we're kind of all clowns in
Yeah.
our own way.
Well, most of the shows that you like, especially if it's a situational comedy, there's a few shows, some soap operas out there. Well, a lot of the TV shows that are soap operas, and everything's a soap opera. Things are either soap operas or situational comedies out there. Every show that the majority of your listeners watch is a soap opera. Whether it's Fire Country or Days of Our Lives, they're all soap operas. And then clowning in these situational comedies. Most of them are clowns, just without the noses. I mean, perfect example is Seinfeld. Seinfeld's just clowns. I mean, they don't have the red nose, but they even have different hierarchy of like, what we'd say is like high status, middle status, and low status. I mean, I could go right. Low status is Kramer.
Right.
He's just like anything can happen. Middle status is George. He can be kind of sensible, but not really. Then there's Elaine, which is like the female equivalent of George, which is but kind of smarter. She's got kind of like, and then you've got Jerry, who's kind of like the boss clown. He's just
Mhm.
like he can have his own things. There's no doubt about it. He's just, but he's not near like Goofus and Doofus. So that they're all just clowns. They're just different. That's just a different hierarchy of clowns. I mean, you could call them clowns. You could also say, they're all these characters. So a lot of character driven stuff is really what we see is just clowning without the noses. Same thing for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. I go through the
Wow.
same thing.
Great
I mean,
show.
great show, really funny, and it's like, and it's these shows they're wonderful. I mean, you could say the same thing about Schitt's Creek, which has
Hmm.
got like, they're, it's just like, okay, well, these are just so in a lot of ways, back to your point, oh, I didn't think of Jackass as this. It's like this is just the evolution of a lot of what this clowning is. It's become so ingrained in characters and kind of our ids that we just see it as like a character on a show. But I mean, they're very steeped in clowning.
Yeah.
I mean, even like when Kramer's is so physical, like he's doing it all. If
Yeah.
you put on a nose, you'd be like, oh. Oh, he is a clown. I
Yeah.
didn't even think that, but he's such a clown in that show.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, yeah. So I think having once you kind of see it, it's just kind of hard to unsee. Like,
Hmm.
those are all clowns. And I think maybe that's a lot of where where society's tastes are changing, right? Things go back. I mean, hey, mullets are back in, dude. I've seen mullets come in and go back out, and come in and go back out. So, I think right now maybe makeup is out, and then maybe eventually makeup's back in, and they'll do makeup with clowns. And right now makeup is no, we just want the red nose. We don't want, it's very European. Europeans have just red noses. Cirque du Soleil has made that very popular. Some sort of like kind of they look like characters, but little touch ups, and so maybe that's the direction that we're headed now. I don't know.
I always find it kind of neat. Like I think about like mascots, and I guess a clown. You're not wearing a mask per se, but you have makeup on and things like that. You could be an entirely different person as like a mascot or a clown than you are in real life, obviously, which is
Yeah,
kind of
I
neat.
love that about it.
Yeah.
There was a book that I had that has on the back, it was all these, I think it's 100 Clowns is what it's called. It has all these old guys on the back cover, and it has them as clown, and then it has them in suits, and it's drawing pictures to like a little line. That's that guy, that's that guy, that's that guy. Like, oh my God, dude, you would never guess that. I love the anonymity. And then there's also something as a performer, when I go into a party, and if I'm doing a show, and then if I'm on a TV set, I'm in clown, and people see me and like come out, and I don't have clown on, I was like, huh, who are you? It's like, oh, I'm the clown. I was like, you're the clown? Oh, dude, I didn't even, So I
Yeah.
think there's some. It feels super, there's something very
Yeah. Freeing or something.
superhero-y,
Yeah.
kind of like, yeah. But and the same things apply, right? I mean, most clowns follow this. There's a couple notable ones that don't, but I don't do makeup in front of people. I don't get dressed in front of people. I mean, of course, accidents happen, and something is, because think about it. Would Superman still have the same sort of panache if like if you see him putting his onesie on? Like, sorry, dude, I couldn't find anything
Be
to
right
get
there.
dressed
Yeah.
in, so I had to kind of do it here. You'd
Yeah.
be like Superman. Like I thought
Yeah.
you came fully equipped. So I think clowns are the same way. I want to create that
Yeah.
illusion for people, and people that do mask work, they feel the same way. Like you give it. There's an import that you put it, and that you put on the mask, and also you become this character. And I think clowns are a little bit the same.
I like that. Yeah. So back to American Clown. Is there, without giving too much away, is there any part of the documentary that you're like super proud of specifically?
I mean, I'm just proud of getting it done. I think, or finishing it. I think there's so much, for any young filmmakers or any old filmmakers or any filmmakers at all. If you even think about doing a film, it's so hard. There are so many things that can knock it off the track. I mean, countless. I mean, even when you get into a film festival, the amount of rejections I got before Dancing with Films, I'm like, what? You can't even see straight. Um, so just getting it done, just trying to is a huge accomplishment. And it's even then you're like, okay, now how do people see this? How do I get people to see this film? Because now that we're finished. So if I had, what's been, I think you're to redirect what's if there's been one accomplishment or a feeling of it, what was exactly you said,
The question was,
John?
is there a moment that you're specifically proud of, like in the film itself? But I mean, obviously, your answer can
No,
kind of.
yeah, yeah. I mean, I think that's it, right? I'm also kind of proud. We all had an idea of how the ending, how we wanted it to be, that there would have this sort of natural cycle, and then it would be like, aha, but then everything's, fine, and it's good, and, they're still vibrant, and clowns live another day. And there's an element to it that's, sure, like that, or you could take that track if you wanted to. I think by all means that is there. I don't want to be some negative nanny, but there's also kind of a call of action to it. And I don't think it's something that the producers necessarily wanted. I think they wanted it tied up in a nicer little bow, but it was like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is where we are, man. It's like this is a documentary, right? We are documenting where we are, and this happens to be where we are, So I don't know. I and I'm proud of like having the conviction to realize that. Like, oh, I mean, that's, I like it to tell a different story,
Yeah.
but this is the story that it told. So I mean, hopefully other people will resonate with that and they'll feel like compelled to be like, you know what, yeah, I'm for this. Let's do this, and I like it being a bit of a call to action. And I might be the only one.
No, I mean
I'm
I'm excited to see it. What's the release plan for it?
So we will premiere on the 23rd of June. So if you're in Hollywood, get tickets now. It's selling out, but it's going to be there at Hollywood Highland, right there in smack dab in Hollywood. And then the hope after that, we might do a couple other festivals. But then the hope would be to get a distribution deal somewhere. I mean, chances are it will find it and it'll stream somewhere eventually, somehow. But it'd be nice to, I don't really get, I mean, it's just self-financed by me, but I don't care if I get paid, but love to give the producers something, just for like kind of been strung along for as long as we have without getting anything. But to me, this is a passion project. This is what I want to do. This is a story I want to tell. This is an awareness I want to bring. I think oftentimes with some of the rejections, I've had to remind myself, like for a lot of people that aren't in this profession, they don't see this as a thing. It's like what you were saying, John. Like I hadn't really thought about that before.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm in it, right? I see it every day. I
It's your
see
life.
kids talk to me, and so to me, it's very present. But to a lot of people, so I like it. It's just a conversation starter. Like why is this? Because I think if I were going to go a step further and say, I think we should be careful of people killing messengers, right? People that question power, people that question, authority, that people, the truth tellers. I think if we're trying to make all those people sound like those people are crazy, what kind of society are we relegating ourselves to? What kind of society are we admitting that we live in if no one can speak out? And I think that's a little bit of what I think we're creeping on. And I think it's worth asking this question of like, what are we doing here? Why are we killing these people that make us laugh? I mean, that should be kind of alarm bells. Are we the canary in the coal mine for some bigger things to come? So, I'm not saying that that's what that is. I'm just saying this is the beginning. I'm seeing some frayed edges here, and I think that it's worth recognizing and documenting.
Yeah. Now, is this a one-off, you think, or do you think this will kind of lead into some other things?
I think this is I mean, I could do American Clown too, because I don't think the story's finished, I got to a point, the producers, there's lots of people that we still want to include. I had hit my list of people I wanted, but I think there's, a potential for others. It was very difficult at 90 minutes to add anybody else in without like getting rid of somebody else. And I had some really wonderful voices that are less recognized that I didn't really want to kick to the curb because I want to get this other, I felt like we had been well represented. And to everyone's credit, whether Bill Irwin, John C. Riley, David Arquette, they're like, dude, just use me sparingly, or I don't want to. And so everybody said that, like, I don't feel like you've got to, really tout me. And so and I did, and we used everybody sparingly. I mean, I think people but it would have been hard to bring other voices in. So in answer to your question, I could potentially see something else happening in the future, or it could be a series too, and we could go out to clowns, and heck, we could do not an American Clown, but a Russian Clown, or I don't know. Yes, yes, the answer is yes.
That's cool. You got to do a tour. You got to do a tour with the movie in different
Hey,
theaters.
I would like that. There's been talks with that too, to do kind of like a brick and mortar tour around and to have clowns there and that whole sort of thing. So that would be fun too, because I think the film does a good job. And the editor that we had, Casey Pinkston, also co-director, did a wonderful job in really giving us a primer at the beginning. And this is how clowns go through it before really identifying all the obstacles we're now facing. So I think for someone that's not maybe steeped in a lot of clown knowledge, they'll have some by the time they get out of here.
Yeah. Well, I have a couple last things, and maybe we could wrap it up. I really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, thanks for having me,
Um,
man.
More iconic, red nose or rainbow wig?
Oh, I mean, in a good way or a bad way? I mean, to me, I
Iconic, yeah.
think,
Like you see that and you're like clown. Like what do you think is more
oh,
iconic?
red nose,
Okay.
a rainbow wig. I see a bad clown whenever I see a rainbow wig.
Okay. Have you ever ridden in a clown car?
Yeah, I have a clown car. It's probably not the clown car you're thinking. I have been in when I did Modern Family, we were got into a Mini Cooper, but I've never been into a clown car provided to me by a legitimate circus. So I guess yes and no.
Okay. Um, I have better talent, and I guess that's not really the right phrase. What do you think is more challenging, balloon animals or face painting?
Oh, for me, face painting.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe because I'm just that's a part of that. Or I try and I do it, but like I'll try to like, hey, sure you don't want a cat, so I tend to but then balloon animals can be the same thing. I feel like that skill set for me is a little bit is expanded a little bit. But I have I have seen balloon twisters, and one of the producers on this movie is an excellent balloon twister, and I have seen face painters that would just make me want to like never do it again.
Mm.
So.
I think my favorite, and might just be my favorite based on my limited viewing of this type of thing, but favorite scene in a movie is Wedding Crashers with Vince Vaughn.
Bicycle, make me bicycle.
Maybe a bicycle clown. And
Yeah, I used to get that a lot. I used to get that a lot.
I was,
Now less.
yeah, I was gonna ask you if like that was like a, that's gotta be like a fuck you type of thing, right?
Bicycle, yeah, it happens a lot. And then
Yeah,
this is, there's be a lot of the same similar jokes that clowns get. And then a big one is like, hey, quit clowning around.
right,
Yeah, you get that a lot. Like,
right.
I'll try. I'll try. It's all in good spirit. Listen, anytime to engage with the clown, I think is good. It really, to me, to me, it really and then this may be something I need to look at and talk to my therapist about. But when I see when I'm in a situation and I'm going to something or I'm a clown or whatever, full clown, and I see somebody kind of like just on their phone and look up and not be like, oh dude, or like, oh my God. When that's not a reaction and it's just kind of I think you gotta be a miserable person.
Yeah,
You just got. There's nothing in you was like, hey, oh man, hey, or like a second gaze, or like, oh, hey,
yeah,
not just kind of like, oh, I just think like, who does that? Who does that?
yeah.
Who does like? I'm just doing this for. I just think it's so weird. So I have to like. I need to talk to my therapist about it. Like, I feel like those are bad people, and it's probably
I
not a good
agree.
way to think. It just feels like what's like.
I agree. I agree with you. I
Oh,
think you're fine.
or not people that have lost their kid. And
Oh,
I don't mean like literally lost their kid, maybe that too, but kind of like, there's a part of me growing up with my father, who I love. There was just like he was always like so like adult.
hmm,
Like I mean, now I can kind of parse that out and see, look at like the vulnerability was not an attribute that any man wanted, and I think that did us. It's part of this. I think this did us a lot of disservice. That there's something really joyous about keeping our kid kind of alive and fun, and like keeping that person inside of us that might, it has that doesn't want to be crushed, that wants to be,
yeah,
like the same way that we try to protect that in our kids, we got to protect that in ourselves. you
yeah,
know you can't let that thing die, because that's when the mystery and the wonder and the learning, that's when they die.
hmm.
And I think it's and so I think those people, they let it die, that sense of wonder,
I
or
love
they're
that.
just late for something and they don't have time, that
Right.
could be it.
I love that. It's a great way to end. Do you want to plug your music at all? I mean, is that a big part of your life? I mean, I feel like,
Yeah, listen, I have it is. It's been a huge part. It's taken the back seat because of this stuff, but I'm a children's artist. Gilly Atoms, GILLYATOMS. I've done 6 kids albums. I have kids myself, and it started off with a challenge from my wife. I had a bunch of kids songs I'd written, and then she's like, "Why don't you release them for our kid's first birthday?" And so I did. And then she's like, okay, so what are you doing next year? I was like, next year. It's like, well, yeah, you're going to do that every year for the
yeah,
first 5 years, right? It's like, what? Like, okay, well, better get to writing. So I did 5 albums. I did a Christmas album too for any people that want to celebrate Christmas out there. And so I did 6 albums, and I've been in bands my whole life, and so I have 2 solo albums under Guilford Adams, my name Guilford, and they're everywhere streaming. I got a bunch of CDs, they're everywhere. And it's like, music has, as an artist and as a writer, I will say, played such an important part of me in my sort of music plays such I'm such a music person. I've always got headphones on and I'm listening to music all the time. But just being able to, and I'm okay guitarist, I'm a rhythm player, but I just love writing songs. I just that's the vehicle for me to write is the guitar. And I you could have the worst day possible, just complete crap, and you sit down and you're frustrated and you write a song and you're like, that day just changed.
Mhm.
Like I just wrote a song. I just wrote, and I like it, and it kind of expressed how I was feeling, and I loved it. So I did that with the kids stuff, and I really, and I was like, I don't know if I'm writing songs for kids or if I'm writing songs for the kids' parents. I can't tell. I really can't. I want them both to be entertained, and so there could be like some scholastic person that's like, okay, see, kids really won't relate to this. Like, I don't know. I might be writing for the parent at this point. I don't know. I listen to songs and I want to be like not bored by the Wiggles all the time. So I'm trying to do something kind of tongue in cheek that sounds fun. And then my adult art, it's like, or my solo stuff is just about the way I'm feeling, and it's very country sometimes, but it plays the gamut. So yeah, I for anyone out there, if you haven't started playing guitar or ukulele or something, and you're on the fence, just do it, just buy one, do it. It'll be the one of many you're gonna buy if you keep with it, and just write songs, man. You don't have to be good. You really don't. You just learn a couple chords, write a song, and it'll hook you. It'll hook you. If you want to get better, join friends that have guitars, and then you'll start playing with them. They'll be better than you. Like, oh God, I got to keep up. What is that? Is that an E? God, it's going fast. Like so. It'll change your life. It'll
Yeah.
change your life.
I never got into playing music. I've just been a music lover, which is one of the reasons I started this podcast. And it was trying to get like just entertainment in general. So again, this is a perfect, it's just, part of that. It just kind of gravitated towards musicians that I've been doing over the past 4.5 years. So it's really always cool to expand and talk to directors and actors and comedians. And I just did a UFC fighter the other day. But as far as music goes, I never, and it's too late to start now. People say it's not, it is. And I will die on that hill. It's too late. I have very little time the way it is with, full-time job doing this. My wife's got a full-time job. She's doing school too, kids baseball practices, and it just,
I know, man. I get it. I
it's
get it.
not. I thought you were going to try and like convince me. That's why I
No,
went on a
no.
little rant
I'm gonna
there.
let you convince yourself.
No, it's not going to happen.
I get it, man. I get it. I get
But
it. I mean, listen, we have guitars everywhere. Every room, I got a guitar here, got guitars over there. My kids haven't touched them in a while. I buy guitars for them all the time. I mean, it's like a problem. Any
yeah,
guitarist is like, dude, I got two. And you hide them, you sneak them in. Then you don't buy guitars. Now you're buying ukuleles. Like before, I'm like a little one stringed instrument. I just need something. I need some. But it's just, yeah, once you get the hook, man, it's just writing that song is just, it's one of those highs that you can't, it's like falling in love,
yeah,
you want to feel it again. You really like, oh, I gotta, so, and then you got to record, and then you do them and a bunch of them, you're like, well, I don't want to forget them. I better record them so I
yeah,
can move on to other songs. And then all of a sudden, before you know it, you've done 8 albums.
yeah. I wish I would have tried at a younger age. My mom wanted me to. She's like, "Why don't you take banjo lessons?" And I'm like, "Why did you position it as banjo? Like that was like the least coolest thing you could have tried to
Oh,
make me do."
banjo's cool. Now it's
No,
cool.
yeah, now I
It's
would have
come
been like,
back.
yeah, hell yeah. But
Now
like
it's
back then,
cool.
I'm like,
Well, I'm
let me
gonna
go.
check back in with you in 5 years and see, because I keep saying that about piano, and I'm
Okay,
like, oh, it's just too late. Oh, I should do. So I'm gonna check back in and see how both of us are doing.
all
We
right,
could both be at the same spot.
sounds good.
Okay, man.
Well,
Thanks for
Guilford,
having me.
thank you so much. I appreciate it. American Clown. I hope people out there get a chance to see it.
Yeah,
And looking forward to it.
an American Clown movie on Instagram, AmericanClownMovie.com. Yeah, just and yeah, don't lose your kid. right? I mean, physically, don't lose it. If
Right.
you have a child, don't lose that child, please.
Right.
But also, don't lose the child inside of you.
Right.
That's my parting advice.
Can I have you for 10 seconds when we hit stop?
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Thank you again for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, man.
Thanks.